Hi, everybody. Can you see and hear me? If you can see or hear me, why don't you type something in the chat function and let me know. Looking for the chat function. We can give people a moment to come. Oh, great. Great. Look, I'm seeing Diane. Hello. Hi, how you doing? Great. Great. Perfect. Perfect. Well, in that case, I want to take a moment to just go on and get started. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for joining. I'm out here on the West Coast here in California, so it's about shortly after 8 a.m. So I'm glad that you guys who are doing the early shift can join. My name is Curtis Johnson. I'm an expert coach here at Fortuna Admissions. I'm glad to be here on the GMAT Club YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe to be notified about new MBA and GMAT videos. There's a special offer as a part of this session. So if you subscribe, you'll get a 7-day subscription to GMAT Club tests. Activation is instant, so please look for a link in the comments. I do have coffee. I haven't gotten into it yet, Diane, but I appreciate you looking out for me and thinking about me. So I'm going to just give you guys a heads up. I can see the comments right now, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in just a second, so I won't be able to see all of them. Just know that they're all coming, and please do submit comments in real time. And then once I'm done sharing with this, we'll go back into the Q&A and be able to tackle all of these. I want to get to all of you guys' wonderful thoughts and questions and address this and make it as useful as possible for you. So with that said, I'm going to go into sharing my screen and talk a little bit about how to pitch your story to an MBA admissions committee. All right. And here we go. Perfect. So we're just going to go ahead and get this started here. And as I said, my name is Curtis Johnson, and it is, in fact, March 2020. Man, I just want to take a quick moment to thank you all in the midst of everything that's going on here globally. Man, it's a really trying and challenging time. So the fact that you're able to be here and prioritize that says a lot about you, says hopefully a lot about the content that we're looking to provide, hoping everybody's safe and well during this time. Before we get started, just a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Curtis Johnson. I'm an expert coach with Fortuna Admissions. I'm also a Wharton MBA. So I got my MBA at Wharton back in 2014. And what you see below is sort of a windy road and how I kind of got there. I did my undergraduate degree at Hampton University, which is a historically Black college in Hampton, Virginia. I was a journalism major there. And really, when I went down there, I thought I was going to be the next Stuart Scott. For anybody who's a sports fan, ESPN, longtime ESPN Sports Center anchor, I thought that was going to be me. But I was really just interested in the space in journalism generally. And spent a lot of time doing that in undergrad. But as I got kind of close to the end of my tenure and started to think about life even after school, I realized I was drawn to some of the more strategic elements of communication. Not just telling the stories and doing it in a meaningful way, but even some of the ways in which we tell stories through a more strategic lens. So I went to Penn State, got a master's in strategic communications, and then found myself at a PR firm, Edelman Public Relations, after I graduated with that master's. I worked there for a little while. I had a great time, worked on some really interesting clients and helped them to build sustainable PR campaigns. And I hit a point where I was then looking to do that, but do it for something that meant a little bit more to me as a person. And so I was at the NAACP, which is the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization. I spent about 3.5 years there. Helped build out our digital media operation there. And It was funny. I found that there was so much intentionality around what we were trying to do with the NAACP. And I just was like, man, honestly, I feel like for all we're trying to do, the biggest and the best brands, the ones that have the most resonance with consumers, I feel like they could do some of this stuff accidentally because of the equity that they've built or because of the halo of the brand effect they might have received. And I was really interested in how the biggest and the best built that brand equity and then it used it to influence behavior in the marketplace. And that was the story that I took with me to Wharton. I said, if I'm going to learn it, I need to learn it from the best. And certainly Wharton's going to provide me with not just that foundation exposure to those brands, but also to with the skills necessary to be able to do that. The quantitative rigor. I was always a little analytical, but didn't have some of the skill sets coming from maybe a non-traditional background. And I use air quotes because it's all relative, right? I was at Wharton. I interned at Procter and Gamble, and eventually I found myself where I am now here at the Walt Disney Company. So, in addition to my work with, I've been in a brand strategy role at Disney for the last 5.5 years, really since I graduated from Wharton. And suffice to say, it's been an amazing ride, been an insightful journey, and frankly, it's one in which I've been able to do a lot of what I said I wanted, set out to do at Wharton. So very in line with that. You see that this is kind of a windy path, but when I tell my story and I think about my story, there are a lot of components that really built upon each other. Each step was additive. Each step was thoughtful, and I'm sure the same is the case with you all here on this webcast as well. We're going to talk a lot about what it means to build your story and the necessary ingredients to identify the core pillars of your story. But those are some of mine. This is kind of how I got to this point. In addition to my interest at Wharton in brands and brand management, I also was really interested in the leadership tenets that business school had to offer. Wharton was very impressive to me in that regard. Was fortunate enough to be selected for the Leadership Fellow program while I was at Wharton. And, in that program, we really, in addition to learning a lot of leadership foundations, we get a chance to work with really, really talented first years to help ease their transition into the business school process. We learn various best practices in terms of coaching, mentoring. So I think a lot of this stuff also has led me to this role with Fortuna and to working with folks like yourselves who are really interested in taking that next step in business school. So a little bit about me. So thank you again for joining and sitting with us for the next hour. Today's agenda. So we're going to talk about what's in a brand and sort of the brand difference. Then we're going to delve into the idea of developing your pitch. What do you need to do to develop that? I think there are 3 primary things that we want to think about as under the hood of that. 1, we want to clarify our goals. 2, we want to define our values. And then 3, we want to use it to establish some sort of differentiation, as we'll talk about. And then from there, we want to communicate our pitch. And incorporated in that is influencing an AdCom. Talk a little bit about the recommenders and the importance of them, and engaging your target very strategically, and then telling authentic stories. We'll wrap up with some key takeaways, and I'll give you guys time to really get a lot of your questions answered. So I just want to talk a little bit about what's in a brand and, the brand difference here. So you think about different brands like a Google, which, I know if you weren't on it last night or this morning, you're probably on it last night or later this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Starbucks, this is one, Diane, that you asked me if I was getting coffee. When I get it, it'll be this. For sure. One of my favorite brands. This is another brand that I patronize probably a little too much, given the soda and the caffeine. This definitely need to cut back on it. This is one that I and my wife both patronize quite a bit. I'm sure you guys probably do it the same. I'm disappointed that they're not as readily available, but I understand the circumstances. Another just a few more of my favorite brands. This one's an aspirational brand. So it's okay. All the brands don't have to necessarily be stuff that you engage with every single day. And of course, how could I forget? It's the one that makes things go in my household. So for sure, both for me and for my 3-year-old daughter. So that these are some of our favorite brands. I want you to just take a moment, type in the chat box what some of your favorite brands might be if we didn't cover them here. And I'm just gonna take a look at the chat box. Where'd it go? Okay. All right. It's okay. We can go back to that if you guys don't have one. But I want to actually talk here for a second, because these brands are the ones that matter the most, and it's essentially the brand of you. This is probably the most important brand that we need to be conceptualizing as we think about the Fortuna, the application process. And we at Fortuna take this brand very, very seriously. If it's not up there with your favorite brands, I hope that it is at the end of this presentation. But very similar to how we manage a Disney, how we manage a Nike or an Apple, we need to manage this brand in a very thoughtful way, in a way that's strategic and authentic, and in a way that positions you in the best possible light in the admissions committee. And so that's going to be what we talk about here, and how we frame a lot of the commentary. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, that's from our friend over at Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and it's probably one of the most resonant quotes when it comes to thinking about what a brand actually is, and how we should conceptualize that. When you're not in these rooms, and you won't be in these rooms when the AdCom are making decisions, what do you want them to say about you? Moreover, what do you want them to think about you? Even the things that go unsaid. What do we want that to look like? What do we want that to feel like? I think is so important there. And so when we think about brands, I just want you to keep this quote top of mind. Great brands do a number of things, and this, from my work at Wharton and from my years of studying them, I can see that there are some things that great brands do unequivocally better and without fail. One, they maintain very clear goals. Never do you need to guess what a brand is hoping to achieve, or where they're actually trying to go with it. They define values. You understand what Apple values. They value a quality product, to put in a quality product on the market. They value some level of value, right? iPhones don't just come out. There's a big hullabaloo around it, and certainly the sticker the sticker price that they have when they come out suggests something about the quality that they look to view. Amazon values speed and deliver. They value putting the customer at the forefront. They value making things easy for you. One-click shopping. Dangerous, guys. But a very, one-day shipping. So a lot of one-day playing, one this, one that. So, one day, one click. They want it to be simple, and they want to be quick. They establish differentiation. The difference between Nike and Adidas. There's a difference in the feel. The difference between Starbucks and Peet's Coffee, for sure. Who has the Frappuccino? That's a branded product. So being able to establish that differentiation is key, and then being able to engage your targets in a strategic way. And I say target, usually you have one, maybe two core demographics in which you look to engage. When you're thinking about a broad brand, for you, I think it's very simple. Your primary target is the AdCom. I think there's probably a secondary target, which is probably the community, the surrounding community around your school's schools of choice, because those are going to be really valuable avenues for you to gain insider information about the school which you're looking to impart, right? So if you think about if you were going on a job interview, first thing you probably do is go on LinkedIn and try to reach out to people who you knew in your network at the company that you're looking to get the job. I think that there's something to be said for that. But your primary target is still going to be the people in that interview room that are going to determine whether you get the job or not. Same type of concept there. And then great brands tell authentic and memorable stories. Memorable. I want to say that again. I'll use Disney now as an example, but if you think about just the storytelling that's happened over the course of Disney's life cycle, almost 100 years at this point, and some of the iconic stories that have stood the test of time, starting with a Pinocchio, Snow White, or even a Steamboat Willie, and the characters that come from that, Mickey Mouse. These stories have become so memorable and ingrained in sort of what we value that they extend and have a life of their own. And in some cases, they even spawn additional stories. But I think the key there is that the stories are memorable, and they're memorable in a lot of ways because they're authentic and because they're true to brand. And we want to do the same thing with you and the stories that we're telling here. So again, I'm going to talk about you in terms of a brand. I might use pitch and brand synonymously, because essentially what a pitch is a statement of your brand. So, I just want to kind of give that background there. So I'll stop here and just say that if you're liking this, if you are enjoying what you're seeing, please hit the like button, go ahead and comment on the video. We always love that type of feedback. And again, for me, in trying to tailor presentations like these, it's always helpful to get that type of feedback. So, certainly keen to hear that once this video is posted on YouTube. So if you're checking on YouTube, please, like and comment and share. We always love that as well. All right. So developing your pitch. I talked a little bit about some of the components that are going to go into that. But first and foremost in this process is to clarify, why are we here? What are our goals? Why go through this? Because I'll tell you what, it's a pretty rigorous process. Some of you are already in the throes of it. So if you could give me a virtual head nod, if this is you and you feel that, please, would love to get the feedback. But yes, it's an arduous process, or can be an arduous process between the months of GMAT preparation that it takes. Sometimes we don't get the score exactly that we think we're capable of on the first try, so we go back to the well. That's one component of it. You're applying to one school, if not multiple schools, and need to do everything from, talking to your recommenders and getting them on board to briefing them with what they might say or how they might tell your story. And by the way, that is told within a broader suite of the pillars and different facets of you that you would like to highlight through the process. You need to write essays that are original. And I'll tell you what, I've written many essays in my day, and I've never spent more time on a 300 to 500 word essay than I did when I was applying to business school. And it's amazing because there's certainly economies of scale, but you're doing this for multiple schools and for multiple essays. It's a rigorous process. And in order to really maximize your chance and maximize your focus throughout the process, you need to very early on clarify why you're here. Where are you now? I think is the first thing we want to tackle. So let's contextualize where we're going with first where we are. Where are you professionally? And what things have you accomplished? What tools and experiences have led you to this point? And that'll sort of help us lay the foundation and establish where we want to go and subsequently why. Ultimately, our goal is to articulate how the MBA gets us there. And those reasons are going to vary by candidate, of course. Certainly, there are folks on here that are probably coming from consulting backgrounds, folks from investment banker, folks who, maybe from a more traditional marketing function, entertainment. If you're entertainment, shout it out. Some non-traditional backgrounds, journalists, all of the above were a part of my classroom. Professional athletes. So as you would imagine, when you come in with different skill sets and different prior experiences, that's going to color, what you're trying to extract from the school. For one, because you just have different interests, and two, because you have different skills to begin with, right? But you want to bridge that gap through really specific examples of how this MBA is going to be that red puzzle piece that's going to, be that link between where you are now and where your goals are. Just some questions to ask along the way, some things to consider. What skills do I need that I don't currently have for where I'm trying to go, or rather even that I have, but maybe I need to improve on. So I have some leadership experience. I've actually have a couple direct reports, but it's something that I need to improve over time because I want to scale the impact of my leadership ability. I want to eventually be in the C-suite of a Fortune 500 company. Or I want to lead my own small business, lead my startup, but need to really be able to galvanize folks around a vision. What are those skills that I don't have or I want to continue to improve? What experiences will prepare me for my next opportunity? So, I think that you guys are already thinking the MBA experiences. Obviously, there's the academic part and the tangible skills that you'll get just from the classroom experiences. There'll be other experiences and things that you do that will be a little bit less intangible, but will be no less impactful on who you are and shaping your worldview. Maybe it's a chance to observe how business operates in a particular market that's of interest to you post-grad. Maybe it's some of the leadership opportunities that take place in some of the clubs that you might be a part of it at any of the school that you'll choose. So we want to think about holistically what those experiences are that'll prepare you for the next opportunity. And then when you look back, what's going to be the thing that you really want to have checked off? What's going to need to be on your bucket list? From there, you want to define your values. So identify those themes that are connecting your experiences. There will be some things that when you look at the breadth of what you do, it'll connect a lot of different things. I think that, this part is, and I should stop here just to reiterate, this part is going to require, I think, a lot more introspection and self-reflection than maybe some of the other ones. It's not easy to figure out what your core values are and what things are that are underneath the hood that make you tick. But unfortunately, well, I shouldn't even say unfortunate, there's actually a lot of benefit to it. But I think you got to get here and you actually got to really nail this part of the process in order to really drive home your story. This is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where you have the opportunity to really impact and influence and affect by really being able to connect with those values and then communicate those values. So identifying themes that are connecting some of the experiences that you have is one thing that you want to try to look for. I would say focus on what is an actual value versus what is an aspirational value, because we do have aspirational values, things that we conceptually hold in high regard, but unfortunately our actions don't always mirror that. For the sake of this, we want to focus on the things that we're actually able to do, because we're going to need to have concrete examples that either our recommenders pull up, we pull up in essays, or both. And then you want to kind of pressure test those. So you want to make sure that, okay, now I'm saying this is a value, kind of to my earlier point. How do I make sure that I have actual examples that are demonstrating those values in action so that we can, use the various platforms that we have to bring those to life? Just some techniques to consider. You want to maybe recall some highlights, maybe personal, professional. Think about the values that you were recognizing in those moments. What things were you upholding? Okay. So you think about your proudest moment at work. Why was it your proudest moment, and was it hitting on some level of a core value that matters at a very deep way to you? Think about a personal highlight and do the same thing. Think about a time that you were upset, you were mad, and kind of flip that on its head. There might be some values that were being violated in that moment, values that were not being addressed or met. What were those? So that's another way to kind of approach it. And one thing that I actually had a friend prompt me on. We sometimes will have sessions where we'll he's an accountability partner. One of my best friends, accountability partner. He asked me about it. If I had a coat of arms, what would that look like? We'll be on it. I thought it was a really interesting way to approach the same question. So just a couple of ways that you can go about thinking about what your set of values or what values drive you. From here, want to establish differentiation. There are a lot of black arrows out there. You want to try to be that red one that's bringing something different to the table. So from here, you want to define your strengths and the things that differentiate you. Assess where you're at your best. Where do you feel your best? Where have you gotten feedback where you're at your best? To the point of feedback, confer with those who know you well. Those will be the folks that'll sometimes even illuminate blind spots and I will call them hidden skills because they hide in plain sight. We're so good at them, we're so adept at them that they come naturally to us, and we tend to discredit them. Those are exactly the skills that, if you pick a great recommender, they'll be looking to highlight. You certainly want to make sure that they're in line with your strategy, but I think even in talking through this beforehand as you're crafting your story, this is, just a very helpful tool because, folks see you obviously differently than you see yourself. And, they'll be able to add some value to the process, to this process. And then you're going to combine those strengths to create various pillars for storytelling. So it's the combination. I use the word combine because, I don't know that it's hard to say, oh man, like I'm the only person that works as hard as I do, or I'm the only person that has as much ingenuity as I do. That's hard to say, but what I think is like just the unique mix. It's almost like you think about a social security number. I mean, it's really just a combination of the same 10 digits that everybody has, but it's the unique mix that makes you unique. I think there's a similar thing when it comes to you and who you are, right? Your skills in and of themselves in isolation might not be the thing that is the unique the unique distinguisher. It's the way that you package all of them that is unique, right? And nobody can tell that story like you. And no one has that ability to package them all together like you. And that's going to be your unique selling point. And the better that we tell that story, the more resonant it will be and the more of a unique point it will be. And then lastly, don't ignore areas of opportunity. Self-awareness is really key through this process. There's a meme where a guy goes like this. Some of you guys might know it. Self-awareness is definitely key in this process. You also need to just know how the MBA is going to improve you and improve your standing generally. These are some words to guide you, be faithful to that which exists nowhere but in yourself, and thus make yourself indispensable. Essentially, be authentic to you, listen to you and what that is, and that will be the thing that really drives your unique and irreplicable. I should have done my tongue exercises this morning. Your irreplicable value. So with that said, that is essentially those are the 3 steps and stages in terms of developing your pitch that you want to kind of really hone in on and nail. Then we need to communicate it. So once we've started to refine it, we want to get into the practice of figuring out how we're communicating and developing a strategy around how we're communicating it. When it comes to influencing an AdCom, you have a lot of tools in the toolkit. There are some primary tools that influence your candidacy. And you'll look at some of these. These are just the primary. It's not a I know it's imagination. You look at some of these undergrad degree, there's not a whole lot you can do about that, to be honest. That time has come and that time has gone. And the experiences you've had, I would encourage you to be thoughtful about how you articulate them on the page. But we won't be able to really do a whole lot of original work with that. A similar thing with the resume and work experience. Now we can tailor our resume to highlight, I think, certain skills that we'd like to focus on in the strategy and our broader strategy of how we reflect ourselves. But your work experience is generally that, say for your most recent role. And then obviously the GMAT that's a whole other beast. You're working on that separately. I've italicized the 3 at the bottom because these are the tools that we can really, really leverage. If we leverage them strategically, these are tools that we can use to help influence and help shape how an admissions committee is looking at us. And so I want to take the next slide to just kind of talk through the benefits, the advantages, and how some of these platforms work. Essays, these are 100% owned by you. And I say 100%, realistically, it's 100%. What I would say is that you probably want to have some element of partnership by where you're having your spouse or a parent or a very good friend or a combination of these folks. And when I was applying to business school, I let my mom look at it. I let my girlfriend, who's now my wife, so I picked a good one to review them. But I had both of them take a look at the essays that I was creating. And so I think that having that partnership is great. But they're 100% owned by you, the ultimate product. You have a high degree of artistic license there. And I think that what it does is it allows you to be really proactive in addressing areas that you think are strengths. So when you see an essay prompt, there are many, many ways that you can take that. And certainly, the more aligned you are with the things that we talked about in the first part, the better we're able to make sure that we're touching on and hitting on the different areas of import. I would say the downfall is it doesn't allow for an objective observation of you. There's just no way that we can ever be impartial about how we look at ourselves. And that's actually not always a bad thing. I mean, sometimes we're not as effusive with ourselves as other people are. And we'll talk about recommenders in a second. But, it's definitely not objective 100%. That said, it's really, really influential in establishing your brand. Essays are. They are. Recommendations. So you own the prep part of it. You need to get your recommenders ready. You need to align with all of the things that we mentioned at the outset. Ultimately, that recommender is responsible for the completion. So you don't see it at the end. By the way, just a little tip. When you guys go through your application, it's going to ask you, do you want to see your recommendation at the end? Just always say no. Always say no. I mean, there's no value in it because you picked somebody who you thought would be good. And I mean, what are you gonna when you get into the school, you're gonna ever go back and look at that recommendation? You pick somebody who you think will do a good job. You give them a recommender brief. You give them a guidelines and examples, and then you let them do their work. It's just a bad look. Adcoms will potentially question, is there something to hide? Is there a reason why you would want to see your recommendation? Don't do it. But in any event, you're never going to see that recommendation. They're ultimately responsible for it. A lot of these recommendations are close-ended. They're close-ended questions. They may have short answers, but doesn't give a whole lot. They do get what they need from the recommenders, but I think it's a little bit more guided. What it does do is third-party validation. So it's somebody else saying you're better, you're great. And I'll tell you what, they're oftentimes going to say it better than you would even say it yourself. So you want to try to coach them, let them do their magic, and then let them be authentic. It's definitely influential in corroborating your brand. So I don't know that they will establish your brand, but I would hope that many of the other elements of the package will establish it. These will help corroborate and reinforce your brand. Interviews, 100% owned by you. Again, they're pretty standard. These days, they're shorter and shorter. So Wharton does the team-based discussion, as you guys are probably aware, and really leaves about 10 or so minutes afterward for some pretty standard questions. I remember when I was going through, I didn't have the team-based interview. I was the year before. They were a little bit longer. That was pretty much all you were hit on. But generally, they're generally steered, more reactive by nature. The catch is you got to nail the first two, and even in order to even get here. So while I don't suggest at all that interviews are not important, they are. I say the essays and recommendation is one that is integral to even getting you to the interview stage. Just a quick word on choosing recommenders. I know I mentioned at the outset that you want to make sure that these are people who can speak to you well and be thoughtful about that. I would say, if you're going to do a business school or even considering a business school, you got to seek out mentors that are potentially going to support your candidacy. There's always a question of, well, what if I can't tell my supervisor? Or if I feel like I can't tell my supervisor? And it's not uncommon. A lot of people, experience this. I was actually just speaking to a colleague yesterday on the same subject. So it's not uncommon. I think that would suggest even more, though, that you want to get people allied and familiar with you and your work so that they can help be a storyteller and be a partner in this process. You want to ultimately pick people who know you closely, can speak in detail, kind of echoes what I just said. I wouldn't focus on seniority. It can be impressive, but oftentimes the people who are very senior are not going to be the ones that can really give the level of granularity and specificity that you want. When I was at the NAACP, the president CEO was more than happy to, right? He was eager to want to do it, write my recommendation, but I just knew it wasn't going to be of the same quality as my leader, who, to his credit, was also an extremely thoughtful leader, motivating. But the messenger, then the way that they communicate the style matters more than the messenger's title when we're telling a story. So you want to choose recommenders that are invested in your success, will take time to craft it, and then you're going to work closely with them, provide them with the guidance, give them the different facets of the brief that can help you bring to life the different anecdotes and examples that you are going to use to help really hammer home your brand. You want to engage your target strategically. You see these arrows between these three because they're going to work in a very a symbiotic way. So each of these tools are sort of mix and match to highlight various pillars of your brand and give you balance along the way, right? So, when we start to think about I like to say three pillars because I think there are three pillars that you want to be at the core, and then there might be, an additional 2 to 4 sub pillars that'll kind of float through a lot of your themes and will also be critical to telling your story. But those are going to appear and reappear and disappear at different points throughout these little areas, these areas of your application. You got to think about which tool is going to be the best to represent a given attribute. Some stuff is better said by you. Some stuff is better said by other people. If it's something that only you could articulate or that you can articulate because of your personal experience, it's probably something you want to try to figure out a way to weave into your essay and maybe into your interviews. If it's something about how fantastic you were, how much of a leader you are, things that, really just don't sound great coming from you, you want to try to find a way to get your recommender to say, you want to leverage those tools. And then I mentioned insider info, but figure out how you can get smart about your target. Again, your target is the AdCom. Your target is the community for the schools that you're looking to get into. And so talk to alumni, talk to folks that go to events that are local to you, engage with folks. And I'll give you another little tip. There are a lot of people that are at home right now whose lives are put on hold. This could be a really good opportunity for the proactive person to get some quick replies. I'm sure as you guys are thinking about that, you'll find the way to balance the the potential for intrusion, and the sensitivity of the moment, but also a desire to really be a part of this community. And, as you reach out to folks, I'm sure that they'll be understanding of what you're trying to do and and appreciative of what you're trying to achieve. So, just think about this time and how you can use it. So this is an example of how you might consider leveraging all of these, the different things you want to drum up within your portfolio across the various touch points. So I think at a core level, we might say that we want to highlight three key pillars. One would be work ethic and follow through. Two would be a creative instinct, and then three would be an integrity. So I feel like integrity, probably something that works better when you have other people say it. I might want both of my recommenders to kind of hit on that. It might not be something that I focus as much on my S. It doesn't mean it'll be absent, just means that it won't be, a primary focus for me. For one recommender, I think she'll probably be able to talk about my work ethic and follow through, as well as my collaboration. It's sort of a sub bullet. For my second recommender, I really want him to follow up on my creative instinct, as well as some of my analytical ability and my passion for what it is we do. I want that creative instinct to flow through definitely to one of my essays, because I just know that that's the way that I'll be able to really drive home just this creative knack, right? I'll also touch on some of those other things that my first recommender, or my second recommender hit on. Maybe I will, supplement his examples with a few of my own. So I'm doing some similar work there. In SA2, I really want to deal with that work ethic and follow through, as well as the collaboration. So kind of mirroring recommender one. This is just happenstance. It doesn't have to be that your essays mirror. In fact, like, you want to do as much cross-pollination as you can on these bad boys. And then in the interview, I think it's really just, again, like, it's going to be in some ways rooted in what folks ask you, but I don't think it hurts to think about, holistically, which things did you touch at the different points, the different aspects of the application process, and what do we want to give more light to in the room when we get in front of a member of the admissions committee. So there's just an example of how you can think about this, but you see the versatility, you see how different things show up in different places, that folks focus on multiple key components and even sub-layers of those, but that no one's ever hitting on, the same exact thing. Everything is working in concert. And by the way, your resume is gonna try to tackle some of this too. I think that's another opportunity. It's not here because I think a lot of things are already done, and you're not creating a resume from scratch. Rather, you're tweaking along the edges. But certainly when you think about what those skills are going to be, is there a way that you can show integrity, show creative instinct through the examples that you choose? Absolutely. And then, lastly, we just want to tell authentic and memorable stories. So you've gotten this far. You've done all the pre-work. You've thought very creatively about how you'll tell your story, who you are first and foremost, and what's taking you here, what's driving you here, and then how you're going to tell that story, and the channels of which you're going to tell that story. Now you just have to kind of nail it and hit a few things. This is some things to keep in mind. You want to find a storytelling tone and style that is authentic to your brand. All right. It needs to resonate. I want to say that when all else fails, the story that really, is most authentic and resonant wins, right? All other things being equal. I say, don't be afraid to get personal. I have clients that sometimes say, well, I don't know how personal I can get. That's why I have a coach. So, definitely, like, if you sign on to me or you sign on to someone else, at Fortuna, this is what we do, right? We are here to guide you, and we have experience. But I would say, err on the side of personal. You can always pull it back. You can always look at it. And oftentimes, if you're able to answer the question of, like, why am I saying this? How does this help me meet my goals? You can figure out whether a story's, too personal, right? Or you want to pull some things back. But the stories that you can tell are really what drives value here. You want to give yourself time to iterate. This is not something that happens overnight. that Eureka, I've got it, and crack the story. No, you're going to need a little bit of time, and you want to allow yourself the time and space to be able to just go through that. And, if you got to do another version of a story, that's okay. Because again, like these essays in particular are very critical tools within the toolkit, and we want to make sure we get them right. And last thing I'll say here is just the most compelling stories will be those that'll tie back to that which is you're most passionate about, is most important to you. So when you go back and you define those values and you think about those goals and what has driven you to this point, the stories that really tie back to the core, those are just the ones that you get lost reading, and you want to find content that an AdCom is going to get lost reading, because there's a lot that they have to go through. Got to cut through the clutter. So just some key takeaways here. One, you want to manage your application as you would a brand. So you align each of the elements of the application under common themes. Two, you want to define your goals and values to determine how you'll communicate your unique perspective. Again, it's the combination of all of that stuff that is the unique perspective that only you bring to the table. You're a snowflake in this regard. And we need to define that so that we can communicate that. And then three, each piece of the application is an opportunity to reinforce your brand. Some are more valuable than others, and we talk a little bit about that. But keep in mind that each of those touch points is a chance. Just as a brand in the marketplace, each touch point experience that you have with that brand will influence your perception of it. Four, choose recommenders that know you well and can help accentuate the core pillars of your brand. We talked about that. And then the last thing, storytelling is a mechanism by which you can bring your brand to life. So embrace a style that's authentic and that links back to that which you're most passionate about. All right, we want to really get to know you, and there's no better way to do that than through storytelling. And there's no better way, I think, to tell the stories than through your essays and through the people who know you well. So with that said, I want to thank you guys, once again for joining. I want to give you guys a chance. I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions. I do want to quickly say before we get into that we always love for our viewers to be able to hit that like button, hit that share button. So certainly this is if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, drop us a like, hit a comment, give us some feedback that'll help us continue to tailor these videos and make sure that they're driving home value for you. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen, guys, and I will take on the questions that you may have for me. Okay. All right. Oh, and Diane, Pixar is your favorite brand. Thank you. I love it. You should definitely check out Onward if you haven't. I know right now you're probably limited in your ability to go to the theaters, so I recognize that, but Onward's a great movie. Check out Soul, which hopefully will be coming out in June still. But yeah, sorry, I had to just give that quick shout out. Cool, so we just go into some of the questions here. Kunal, how is a 2-year work experience at a family business looked at by an AdCom, given that it gives an overall business management experience? Is it enough in the eyes of an AdCom, or should I wait longer? That's a good question. Typically, if you look at the average amount of work experience for a lot of your M7 schools, you see about 4 or 5 years. But there are folks with 2 and less. So I would say that it's definitely on the lighter side of work experience. But as with everything, it's all about how you position your experiences, both what you've had and where you're looking to go. I would say for sure. I would say there's not a set answer there, but it can certainly be enough in the AdCom. I guess my question to you is, what skills are you looking to tout that you've received over the last 2 years? Do you feel like you've kind of maxed out your ability to learn there? Are you sure that the MBA is the path that you'd want to take? These are all questions that I'd be prepared to answer, and that an AdCom's probably going to have. But in no means is it a deal breaker. Diane, can you really wait for the interview to get certain things across? So can you wait for the interview to share certain things? Yeah, I mean, I put it like this. I wouldn't take anything that's mission critical, and there's no aspect of you that should be brand new to an AdCom before you get there. Are there going to be potential examples that will help reinforce strengths and different aspects of who you are that you've already been able to tap on into your resume, in your essay, in your recommendation? Absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, like you can be echoing that, and you can definitely give them new stuff. I don't think you want to, tell stories that you've continued to tell, but no facet of you or thing or there shouldn't be any element of who you are or some sort of aspect of your brand that you're just looking to introduce in the interview, if that makes sense. Oh, thank you, Karen. I'm glad you like the diagram. Emmanuel, this is very informative. Great. Yeah, definitely capitalize the interview. Yeah, I mean, certainly if you've got your essays and your referrals already in, then yeah, that the interview will be that next lever that you're able to kind of pull and influence. And wishing you a lot of luck with that. Certainly there are folks here at Fortuna who, like myself and other folks, who can kind of be resources for you during that process and help you prepare. But certainly encourage you to take advantage of that. Many who have locked in admits and current students have been voicing their concerns about the uncertainty the coronavirus has created. Yeah. I got this question again in a conversation yesterday with a colleague. I'm gonna say all of this with a grain of salt, in that there's a lot of things that are speculative at this point, and it's a very early time. So I don't know. So I'll say full stop. I don't know. It's all speculation here. But I definitely see the potential as this continues to creep in and affect, the subsequent months. You can see people that are signaling a potential down economy and maybe are looking to join to get an MBA. That this is just a good 2 years to step out of the workplace and come back when things look a lot more certain, a lot better. So I think that there will be some of that going on, and folks be thinking about what this means for them, both in the immediate term and then in the call it almost 3 years from when they'll start an MBA, or 2.5 years. So actually not 2.5 years. The 3.5 years from when they'll finish an MBA, rather. So I definitely see that being something that folks are considering. In terms of your ability as a candidate to look at schools, I mean, there may be challenges in getting to schools over the next several months, and getting the type of information, in-person information, that is going to really help you make an informed decision and put together the best application for you. So, I would say, to my earlier point, get creative about how you grab that information, for sure. I think anything beyond that is going to be speculation. And I've heard people think that it might be more competitive for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier. I don't know. I mean, wherever you're going, it's going to be competitive anyway. Stanford's acceptance rate is like 7%. No warning HBSs in the teens. So, it's not to scare you, it's not to be daunting, but it's just to be realistic that, I'm a firm believer, like, keep your eyes on your paper, focus on your game, right? I'm a big sports fan. So if you look at sports, you realize that like the best teams they go out and execute their game plan. And when I think about this process for you guys, I highly encourage you to go out and develop your game plan and execute on it as best you can. And I feel confident in what's to come. All right. Your alma mater, Wharton School, has retained a top position in U.S. News MBA rankings for the second consecutive years. Can you recall some of your interesting experiences from your days at Wharton? Absolutely. Wharton was an amazing experience for me. I'm actually originally from Philadelphia, so going to Wharton School and even being a part of the broader Penn community, which is everybody of Philly knows is cream of the crop, was just such an honor. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that really drew me to Wharton was that the focus on leadership and some of the experiences that I can recall being a leadership fellow at Wharton. There were definitely the 8 a.m. Friday trainings, after a fun night out with friends, but there was a lot of camaraderie built in the leadership fellow camp, and there was just a lot of memories made. Working with some of the first years as a leadership fellow. I helped one of the guys that was matched up with me at a startup, and he was like, man, like I have this idea, but I don't know how to implement it. And so we just talked through a couple of hard deadlines and what he was hoping to accomplish with it. And really develop a backwards timeline. And this is a startup that's, out here now 5 years later, more than 5 years later, he's out here continuing to lead that startup. Has grown exponentially, and just being a part of that was amazing. The travel was incredible. I mean, I had been places, but, to be at Wharton and be a part of a global immersion program in China, to be able to see behind the curtain of Weibo or Baidu, Tencent, but also to see some of the more rural options and how things differ so much between even tier 1 and tier 2 China was really fascinating. To go on trips to Colombia or other just overseas opportunities and international opportunities. Wharton is truly just a global campus, a global economy, and man, I was just thrilled to be a part of that. Other leadership experiences. I was the vice president of our Black MBA Association, which I think just set the path for other leadership opportunities that I've taken either at Disney or just generally in my personal life. Made some really amazing bonds. Just a great experience. Great experience. How would a 2-year rotational program at a top BB in their MO be considered in terms of work experience? Looking to move to FO. I'm not gonna lie, like there are a lot of abbreviations there. A 2-year rotational program. I mean, I don't think I think it would look fine. Again, it's all in how you articulate it. Certainly a 2-year rotational would give you a chance to show how you've both had different experiences, but also, sort of allowed you to sort of hone in on what drives you and what you'd like to do post MBA. I think it's certainly impactful. If that's, if it's just those 2 years, then I would be ready to answer the why now question. Is there, I might, play devil's advocate, but are there more experiences you can get as a part of your current firm? In one of the probably the 4 areas that you've rotated in, do you need more information before knowing you're ready to take the next step in business school? Just some questions to ask, but I think it certainly gives excuse me, it certainly gives you the breadth of experiences that I think is helpful when it comes down to like knowing where you want to go and why. Thanks for the informative session. Will we upload the entire video on YouTube? Yes. How did I leverage my brain to get into Wharton? I kind of told my story in the way that I started out with you guys, that, you know, I had this this passion for this communications background, this desire to really want to understand how brands thought about brand management at the highest levels and how they sort of built that equity, analyzed that equity over time. But I needed like a quantitative skill set in order to be able to really, you know, go in and do that. And so I focused on, you know, the sort of the non-traditional skills that I brought to the table from a communication standpoint, from a collaboration standpoint. While I was at the NAACP, I sort of oversaw the growth of our digital department. So from a I guess vision to conception standpoint, and then I kind of talked about the delta, which is a lot of it was the leadership experience and the quantitative rigor. So that's how I talked about it. I always tell my clients, I don't say it ever to brag, but, you know, like I got into the schools that I applied to, and I think it was in large part due to just having a clear, thorough strategy for how I would really focus in on my strengths and be clear about what I thought that red chip is, if you think back to the slide. Applying to schools that don't accept letters of rec, what are some items that you think should be prioritized, emphasized in the essay to help sell my brand? That's a great question. Just looking at it again. Well, so I think that like what you lose in not having the letter of recommendation is the ability for someone to kind of tick off some of the things that we know adcoms are looking for, but are harder to say about yourself. So leadership is one I think that comes to mind. You can talk about the projects you've led, and I certainly, you know, would hone in on a project or figure out a way to show and demonstrate that leadership, because someone's not going to be able to say, oh, Nicole, you know, led X, Y, and Z, and find a way to do it that is factual and you know, not sort of, you know, objective, which is all of this anyway. But I think like when a recommender is doing it, it can be factual, but also insert their opinion. You just need to be factual. So I would say definitely focus on your leadership ability. You know, I think if you're able to demonstrate growth, and this doesn't have to be through your essay, this could also be through your resume, but the ability to demonstrate growth is another one that I would say, you know, try to specifically hone in on and figure out ways to tell that. You know, I absolutely want to make my contact information available for all of you guys, and we can, you know, certainly talk more in depth about some of the specifics of your circumstances. Nicole, I feel like this is one that like I you know, love to talk with you offline. And I want to make sure that everybody gets my information as well. But before this thing is over, MO is middle office, FO is front office. I got it. Okay. I'm not investment banking, and this is why, Karen. I appreciate that. All our videos are always available to watch on YouTube. Yep, that's right. So I think that I've covered just about all of you guys' questions. If you have one real quick, you want to shout out to me, go ahead and do that real quick. And then the next thing, I just want to make sure that you guys have access to my information, which is here. So me at Curtis, CURTIS.Johnson at fortunaadmissions.com. I have another email under there. It's just one of our directors, Judith Hodara. She can also be reached. And, you know, reach out to us. Sign up for a free 30-minute strategy session. You know, would love to continue the conversation with all of you guys. You know, certainly eager to hear back, and you know, really wishing you guys the best of luck. Thank you for joining during this crazy time, and you know, just my sincerest thoughts and and well wishes to you all's family. Hope you please are safe out there. So have a good rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.